Hello and welcome to Election Day. Woo! Woo. I'm Sue
I'm Jazz.
I'm Jen.
here with a special bonus episode on Election Day 2024. We made it, guys.
Yeah, we made it.
We
That
have
sounds
made
so
it to the day.
excited.
We haven't made it through the day. So we got to
Oh,
make it through the day.
we just have to make it through the day.
Question. Since it's the day, and I know we all discussed that we were going on election day, who you bringing with you to the polls?
I'm bringing justice to the polls.
Yay. Jen, what
Uh,
about you? Who you bringing to the poll?
Probably obviously Ray and the girls.
Oh,
So it's a
yay.
family affair.
Yeah. They're very excited about Kamala.
I know they're hype. I know they're
Kamala
hype. I can
Harris.
remember going with my mom. It's going to be such a memorable day for all of them.
I know.
I will be going with my mom and I will be going with my fiance as well. We're going to make it a family affair.
I love that.
That's so fun. Yeah, we'll be out in these streets and then inside until
That's right
later.
for our watch party.
And then we're going live from our watch party, which will
I'm so
hopefully
excited.
be a celebratory occasion and not like a funeral of democracy. I
I
mean,
just hope
we might not know anything. We might just have to drown our sorrows and anxiety in whatever libations we have
well, I'll,
available.
I'll bring a bottle of wine. Um,
Bring
but
two.
also, I mean, yes, I mean at least we'll be together.
Right.
Um, and I'm just hoping it won't be like the movie Inside Out, and we just won't be a whole room full of
Well,
anxieties.
I mean, anything is better than the park or 14th in 2016 at around, I don't know, 9:30 on election night. I was
I
like,
just
"Are
remember
y'all
going to
paying
sleep
attention?" I
sad.
remember being like, are y'all paying attention to the TV? No one else is paying attention?"
I
Okay.
remember ex- I remember exactly where I was. I was in our old living room watching it and watching like little pieces of my soul just break away. And then I said, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, the disbelief was setting in.
I
Yeah.
was like, I can't, I don't know if I can mentally function. So I just have to shut down for the evening.
Yeah, I
That
could
was
not believe my
that was so
eyes. I
traumatic.
couldn't sleep.
No, me neither. My
I
eyes
could
were
not
I don't
sleep.
bloodshot the
remember
next.
if I slept well or not, but I just remember at a certain point, I was like, I can't watch this.
They was like, he's going to win. You might as well go to sleep. I was like, no, fuck that. You can't be
The saddest part
serious. These
is that
people
when
are
I
not
woke,
vote for him.
yeah, I just remember when I woke up the next day thinking to myself, like, I know that didn't happen. Like, I
Mhm.
was like, I can't, but like, did that actually happen? And then I
Yeah.
realized it did.
It
And
seemed surreal. It
I
felt
was still
surreal.
holding out hope, even when I went to South Africa, like that December. And people were like, is that really happening? And I was like, we had the electoral college hasn't voted yet. I don't
Yeah, that's
know.
true. I think,
Maybe
yeah.
there's a
Were
holdout.
we expecting someone to stage a coup?
No, I was expecting
I
maybe, just
mean,
maybe. I was like, maybe somebody got it wrong
yeah. I was
somewhere.
like, there
Right.
Like,
has to be
what
some
happened?
That's what
Like,
I was
discrepancy.
thinking.
I was like, this can't be accurate. Like, somebody's gonna come in. Like, there's got to be a grown up that's gonna save the day.
Right.
I needed to know there was gonna be a grown up to save the day, and that we had no grown up for 4 years.
So here
Well,
we are, 2024,
how was that?
Yes,
8 years? Has it
eight
been?
eight
No,
years later. Yeah.
2016. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm thinking about, I don't
We're
know what I'm thinking
16
about.
years out from 2008.
Yes, when, well,
that's the
November
weird.
4th
Yeah,
was the day that
was
Obama was elected in 2008. We were trying to find
I
those
feel
pictures. I got them somewhere.
like I'm sure you'll come across them eventually. I feel so weird. Like I feel like I have the same. Like I feel like that '08 excitement. Like
Yeah.
I feel that '08 excitement.
Oh,
Like
I told Jen, I was like, when we went, we going up to Howard and just storming the
Yeah.
streets like we did in Atlanta in
oh
'08.
Lord
Oh
Jesus,
yeah.
girl,
It's gonna be
I'm
crazy
gonna
over
make
there.
sure I dress
They've
comfortably.
already shut down like all of Shaw.
Clark's campus was so lit. I remember people were on the roof of the dorms.
That's right, because we lit.
The promenade was packed. Like,
The strip was
I was in
lit.
front of Spelman's campus, like Spelman Morehouse, like what, Lee Street? And it
um,
Hmm.
was just like a sea of people, and people were standing on cars, people
yep,
like,
everybody's standing on cars.
but
Yeah.
it wasn't like the riot situation that you like see like
No, it
after
No, that was
after
a
like a
like
pure
football
moment.
sporting
game
events,
in like
yeah,
That was pure
the Big
enjoyment.
Ten
Okay.
schools.
it
I'm
was
like,
pure
why
joy.
are
That's because
y'all
we're not destructive when we get together to celebrate
right?
like
It
that
was
at our
not
school.
destructive at all. It was like,
No,
Nope.
you can't go to school after you do something like that at a HBCU. They will kindly ask you to leave and no longer attend. You're not about to be destructing campus because you're excited. I just don't.
I just feel like being on a black campus was the best place you could have been.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And then I remember going to like an election. Well, it was like a watch party slash after party, and everybody was so hype. It's a
Hmm.
big house party, and everybody was just so excited. It
And
just,
we
I
went to
don't know
our
how many
Thomas.
times.
I
Uh,
remember being exhausted that day. I don't think I slept that
we took
day
a
because
picture at whatever. What was
I
that
was
huge
event?
exhausted the
party.
next day after partying
We had a
like that.
lock-in in campus. Like
Yeah,
it was like a huge lock-in watch party.
but Jesus
And
came.
yeah,
I can't
his
remember.
blue Lambo was there.
I can't remember how many times I heard my president is black that night, but every
Oh
time I
yeah.
was more excited than the last.
Yes.
Every time. We
Gonna
that
run it
song
back.
did not get old.
Yeah, I think that is another reason why I got so excited when Kamala decided that she was gonna have her watch party at Howard. Like, I mean, Obama, I mean, his first black president, it was significant. But he wasn't an HBCU grad. It's like that's
Exactly.
not a yeah, it's okay
No,
that he wasn't, but the fact that she is, and not
it
only
just makes it so much
is
more special.
she a HBCU grad, but she
Exactly.
embraces it and like celebrates it, and she's a member of
Exactly.
the Divine Nine, which is, like
Oh,
being
did you see the stroll
being.
to the polls?
No, I didn't
I'm
see that.
I'll
that's
see if
so
I think I saved it, but I'll send it to you guys. But
Oh
they
my
did
God. I
a
want to see
stroll to
that.
the polls of the Divine Nine, like just I can't remember exactly whose campus. So once I find the post, I'll send it to you. But
That's so
it was
cute.
so amazing to watch.
Yeah, I just think that for any person to like, especially a black person, you're obviously just being contrary and ignorant, but like to say that she's not black, she doesn't identify with black, she doesn't identify with the culture, like she embodies she's from the Bay Area. Her father's Jamaican. She went to HBCU. She pledged a
Pledge. Yeah, like
sorority.
what are we talking?
She became a prosecutor and wanted to be a public servant because she was seeing injustices that stemmed from her years of being exposed to protests, like of during the civil rights movement. Like she is exactly like, who are you?
On that note,
Or today is election day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, right?
oh
20,
Lord,
2024. If you are registered to vote, please go vote. If you haven't voted already, a lot of people have early voted. I think it's a record number of early votes cast. Yay for America. If you're planning to vote today, a lot of polling locations, most open at 7 a.m., some open at 6 a.m., some open at 8 a.m. In New Hampshire, they open at 11 a.m. It's my kind of state, though. I like to sleep in. I'm cool with that. But um, you can go to When We All Vote, vote.org, vote
I will
411,
vote.com.
literally anywhere. Just Google it. What time does my polling location open in insert state here? Um, you can find your polling location at any of those websites, as well as your Secretary of State website or your Board of Elections website. In terms of voting, when you get there, you'll need ID. Um, if you're registered, a lot of states, I think about 21 states, offer same day registration. So even if you're not registered, you can still vote today. All is not lost. If you just woke up and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this for democracy, for my country, and you hadn't previously registered to vote, you can go register and vote in several states. We'll put the link. A lot of them on the West Coast, Virginia, Maryland, here in DC in the DMV area, California, Nevada, looking at some of the swing states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. So even if you're not registered, you can vote today. When you get to the polls, you'll definitely need ID. Check with your state secretary of state or board of election website to verify which ID is acceptable at your polling location. Sometimes it's just your driver's license. In most cases, if you have a driver's license or some type of state issued ID, that is sufficient. But if you do not, that's okay, because a lot of states take multiple forms of identification. Most states also use electronic polling machines to tabulate the votes. The poll workers will instruct you on how to submit your ballot. Once you successfully cast your vote, you'll get a really cool sticker that you can wear, and everyone will be like, oh, that person cares about democracy. Even if you don't have to even tell people you voted for, but you care about your ability to be able to vote, and that is significant. At the polling location, if the machines are not working, you can still cast a ballot. All of the polling locations should have paper ballots on hand to compensate for any malfunction of the machines. So don't leave the location without casting your vote in some form or fashion. If you are told at the polling location that you can't cast your vote because either you're not registered or you don't have the proper identification or or you're not at the correct polling location, because some states are very strict about exactly where you can vote based on your address, you have options. You can either call some of the election protection resources that can help you figure out the best solution, if you need to go get a different ID or if you can go to another polling location that's close by. You can do that. You can call 1-866-R-VOTE. It's OURVOTE. And those lovely volunteer attorneys can help you decide the best course of action. Or you can ask the polling location for a provisional ballot. And then each state has a process by which those ballots can be cured after they are cast. So whether it's you need to bring in a different form of ID or they need to verify some additional information in the systems in order for your provisional ballot to count. You do have the right to request that, and you can fill it out, and it's better than walking away and not having voted at all.
Correct.
So, what else do people need to know on election day? So, a lot of states have already started counting their ballots, depending on the laws in the state. Again, every state is different and they make their own laws concerning their own elections. Every state can determine when they want to start counting early votes and absentee ballots. Some states can start counting them earlier than election day. Some states can start the morning of election day. And some states have to wait until all of the polls officially close, which means after 7 or 8 o'clock, they can start counting all the ballots. So needless to say, it might take a while. In 2020, we didn't know the results of the presidential election until the Saturday after the Tuesday election. I remember the morning that the election was called, because I was like recording Justice doing something. He was like flipping over or something on the bed, and it was like in the background, I had on MSNBC, and all of a sudden it's like I think it was Pennsylvania that they had to call or something, and then it was like projected winner. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Um,
It's
During that time, states were still counting ballots. A lot of people cast mail-in ballots because it was the pandemic, and it just created it was a whole new system. So there was a lot of adapting to a new system of voting. But that's not to say that any of it was fraudulent or things were done incorrectly, because in all of the challenges to the election results in the 2020 election, no court in the land, whether it was in a red state, blue state, purple state, green state, yellow state, pink state, it doesn't matter. No court found any fraudulent election activity. No election results were overturned. And so that's very key to keep in mind. Just because an election isn't being called, and most likely may not be called tonight, that does not mean that there is something wrong. It just means that there's millions and millions of people casting their vote in this country, and that's a good thing. And so we want to make sure that all the ballots are counted, and they're counted in a way where there's accountability and oversight. And a lot of times what happens, especially with voting machines, especially if there's a close election, there'll be like hand counts. I think that's what happened in Georgia. The process by which some of these oversight levels happen, they're available to the public to watch and to observe. So, nothing is done under the secrecy of the night. Like, everything is by the book, or has traditionally been by the book. We'll see what happens today. Nothing surprises us anymore. But states take their election tabulations and the process very seriously. Even those administrations that may not align with the outcome of their election. In 2020, we saw several states that were controlled by Republicans certify the election for the Democratic candidate. And that is an embodiment of what democracy is about. So we're not optimistic that we'll know who the winner of the presidential election is by the end of the night, although we hope that we won't be
much more of a
waiting on pins and
landslide.
needles for the next week. But
Yeah, I wish we could go back to the days where you knew that night.
that night, yeah, I think about what it was like, maybe 10, 11 o'clock in
Right, but you would know
2008. We
before it's
knew, and
like
we were dancing
midnight.
in the streets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
good
But yes,
times, good
those are the
times.
days. Um, but yes, and it's gonna be a long night. If this is your first time, really paying attention to the results of the election as they come out, you'll start to see and plug for the one and only incomparable Steve Kornacki, who breaks down election results like no other. Like, he is literally a mathematician when it comes to election tabulations and getting the votes and doing some math on the screen with this little marker and then a calculator in his little pocket of his khakis. And it's like a holiday experience. So we operate in the United States. Our presidential election operates under an electoral college system, which means that every state is assigned a number of electoral college votes that will then go towards the candidate in the state who receives the most popular votes in that state. Each state has the exact amount of votes as their representation in Congress. So, of the 435 House of Representative members that are in Congress, and the House of Representative members are determined by population, plus the 100 senators, two for each state, determines how many electoral college votes the state has. So, some of the bigger states have the most electoral college votes, and some of the states with the least amount of citizens have the least electoral college votes. So if California has, well, I have my map right here. California has a very large number of electoral college votes. California has 55 electoral college votes. I
Oh,
think
I
they
was
have the
thinking
most.
54. I was close. I was
You were
close. I
close.
was thinking 54, but
Which do you can you guess which state has the second most electoral college votes?
isn't it Texas?
Yes, okay. Yes, you're right. Texas has 38.
I
And
be
then it
knowing
goes
things.
and then New York actually. No, New York and Florida are tied for
I was gonna say I thought it was
third.
Florida, but I wasn't
Yeah,
sure about New York.
29. Um so yeah, the electoral college system is it's something that has been under scrutiny, especially in the last couple of years, because the outcome of the actual election, because of the electoral college, has not aligned with the candidate that got the most popular votes throughout the country. A lot of people view that as not democracy and not a part of a democratic process. So there are efforts to make the presidential election, because the presidential election is the only system that operates under the electoral college. There are efforts to get rid of the electoral college. That would take a constitutional amendment, and it's not something that really has gotten a lot of momentum and would be a huge undertaking. So not something in the cards for the next for not today, and probably not the next 4, 8, or 12 years. So, you know, maybe one day. But today, the candidate that wins the election is going to need 270 votes. That's the majority
Threshold.
of the 538 electoral college votes that are available. And then once the candidate reaches 270, they are declared the winner. So,
Woo.
in terms of when we can expect election results tonight, again, each state is different and they make their own rules. So Georgia counts their ballots fast than some other states. Relatively fast is the term that I think is appropriate. North Carolina counts fast because they have some new rules that instead of mail-in ballots being postmarked, like prior to this year, you could postmark mail-in ballots by election day and they would still be counted, even if they were received like in the days after. But now mail-in ballots have to be received by when the polls close. So they got to be received by tonight or they're not going to count. Pennsylvania likely to take longer than election night to count. But you also still in Pennsylvania, your mail-in ballot has to be received by the night of election day. Michigan could be faster than in the past because they have new state laws that allow them to start counting in-person votes and any mail-in ballots that they receive before election day. Wisconsin is expected to finish their counting on Wednesday. Arizona can take days, and Nevada can take days. Yeah, so that's what we can expect when we're
Okay.
expecting election results. In terms of what happens when the election results come in, what are we looking for?
Well, one thing we need to kind of keep an eye out for is there's a few things that happen once the results start coming in, whether they're being partially counted, because as we know, most places, when we see results on election night, it's because X amount of the percentage of the demographic of that county, their votes have been tabulated. If it's a large enough percentage of the votes that have been cast that they've calculated, that's usually how they go ahead and call the counties, even if they still have some votes left. If they know the margin of percentage is the amount of votes they have left, then they're able to call them. So with that being said, sometimes we have what is known as a red mirage, similar to, a mirage. How that applies to voting. that usually means that because how larger counties and just how different places have different rules about how they count votes, typically places with denser populations, which means they have more people, usually have more people voting in them, just as a numbers game, as opposed to smaller places or more rural places or just smaller communities. Um, so we're talking about places that may be more rural, um, that have smaller populations, which may historically, should I say, have typically been um, more red counties. So that is something to keep in mind as we see these elections coming in, as they're calling them for certain counties. That is going to be a representation of what you see coming in earlier. Sometimes a lot of the places that are smaller that are easy to get through those counts. So just keep in mind, just as we've seen in years past, sometimes just because you see certain places are leaning more red, are leaning more red as the beginning, as the beginning of votes are starting to be calculated, as they're getting to the more populated regions that tend to be a little more democratic or have more of a blend, you'll kind of start to see a bit more of the blue votes starting to show up. So that is something to keep in mind. Also, with this year in particular, something to keep in mind is that they heavily discouraged in 2020 about mail-in voting. So a lot of people who may have mail-in voted were urged to go on election day, and that was from the urging of the Republicans. What we've seen is that somewhere along that end of this election is that they've now been encouraging some of their voters to try to do early voting. So we may see a little more red in certain places in the voting tabulations that have come in early, but that's not necessarily something to be alarmed at. Also, as we know, we have it seems to be on par that more people are turning out. So that means more votes are coming out. So that is something we also should just wait until we actually get results to start making uh, statements about it, and not necessarily jumping to conclusions or making assumptions or panicking. So don't panic. Just know sometimes it may seem a bit more red, but a lot of times, as historically is shown, once we start tabulating votes from larger places, um, we will see that. And also, a lot more people are mobilized for a lot of things this election cycle, so that will show. And how the votes are gonna come about. So that's something to definitely think about.
Yeah. As you were describing that, I'm thinking of, again, going back to my main man, Steve Kornacki, like the way that he, like, it's like they telepathically tell him, "Oh, there are another batch of 100,000 votes coming out of Pinellas County," and it's like then he does his thing on the thing on the screen, and it's just like
And he's like,
magic,
oh, and that means that now that's this, and this. After
right?
he
And
has the
he's
math
like
skills that I don't.
the amount of knowledge that he has about the electoral map, like in his head, and like not only the map, but like the demographics of historic like the races in the past that those like certain counties and certain places have swung, or have supported a certain candidate. It's like it's literally like an art, and there's no one who can do it like him. Like even if you don't watch MSNBC on a daily basis, like just watching him do his thing is like the most poetic part of an election night. It's like I always love to see Steve. It's like
I
it's
I
time.
appreciate that, and I
Um,
appreciate the people who actually wait until the votes come in, and even if they're doing a minute by minute, play by play, which I think is very exciting. It would really grinds my gears, which I think, trying to remember what year, I think it was 2012, but it really grinded my gears because he started to have people, certain news stations that were so in a rush to try to
yeah,
break
that was 2012.
news that they were literally just like making stuff up. And I'm like,
Yep,
news's job is to report what happens, not speculate and make assumptions and guesses. That's not why we're here.
right. Yeah. And others have tried and failed to do it like Steve. So
Can't nobody do it like Steve. Nope.
nope.
I think Jazz touched on everything, but it might not be a red mirage necessarily. There are times we have seen blue mirages too. Like
Hmm.
2020 was a great example because obviously the pandemic was going on. And so, um, a lot of people voted early or did mail-in voting, to avoid in person. So, like, generally speaking, there are three factors that produce vote mirages: geography, vote mode, and the order of tabulation. So, mirages can emerge because of geographic differences in the counties that report more quickly versus those that report more slowly. And also just partisan differences by vote mode. Like, certain parties, some people think like Democrats might mail in their votes more than Republicans, who tend to undermine the credibility of.
Holistic voting process.
Exactly. So those are some things that can contribute to it. Like in North Carolina in 2020, most Dems have voted by mail, while Republicans were encouraging their voter demographics to like show up in person. So like back then by 8/18, Biden was up by like 57%, in the statewide vote count, which made us think, oh wow, like North Carolina's getting ready to turn blue. This is great. And then by over the next 3 hours, that flipped because those in-person votes were being counted, and his lead shrunk down to 48.6, ultimately turning the state red for Trump. So, I think elections are different now. We just have to wait until
Hmm.
all the votes are counted. And also, two states vote each mode of ballots one at a time. So mail-in ballots and early voting is usually, those things are, I think early voting is first, then I think in person, and then the mail-in absentees are voted
Hmm.
last, are counted last. So, and
Yeah.
all of those things, as we've seen, like it doesn't take many, like a small number of votes can swing a state. So we just have to wait and see.
That's why every vote counts. I make sure everyone
Yeah.
gets out and makes their voices heard
Yeah.
Yes.
while we still have voices to be heard.
Right. And every vote does count. Even in the presidential election, even though there's an electoral college system, those electoral college votes are determined by the number of votes that are cast in the
The
state for a
actual
particular
people who
candidate.
vote.
The electors that go on to place their vote for the candidate that the state has determined is the winner in their state cast the vote for that candidate. I think in 2020 there was a lot of talk of like faith, or not even that, just 2016, faithless electors who would go cast their vote for a candidate that did not receive the popular vote in the state. And that rarely happens. And even in 2020, we saw that fake electors is different than faithless electors. Like you can't just pick your own people and determine that, oh, I'm gonna send these people to represent the state. Instead of the actual electors that were picked by the authority of the state. But yeah, the electoral college is an imperfect system. But honestly, if we did not have it, we wouldn't know who the president would be for like weeks, because if we're counting on a popular vote system, every vote would need to be accounted for before we could even have an idea of who would be the president. And in reality, a lot of votes are still being counted long after the candidate or the winner has already been announced. It takes weeks to count all of the votes that come, especially from overseas, and those citizens and mostly a lot of military casting their votes overseas. Those votes are just as important as the votes that are being cast here in the States. So, every vote does count, even though a lot of people will say the popular vote doesn't decide the presidents. It's supposed to happen that the popular vote and the electoral college vote are the same candidate, but we've seen in the past that does not happen. But um,
That's why we need to make sure everybody gets out and vote.
yeah, and we're not just voting for president. Again, there are so many down ballot races. So, you know, research the candidates if you're not sure of what's going to show up on your ballot, and pick the people who will best represent you and your priorities and the things that you want to see in your community are.
Do we want to prepare people for some of the rhetoric and not to get
Prepare them for what?
alarmed? You know how Trump has been out here basically claiming he's going to win by overwhelm. Or Sue, did you already touch on that earlier?
Oh, right wing media is like hyping up a Trump like a landslide win and like not preparing
Mm-hmm.
supporters for the possibility that there could be another result. And I saw this
That's how they let them live in the land of delusion. They're like, well,
yeah,
let's just make you believe that there's no way to happen.
right. So they're already putting that out there, which is exactly what they did in 2020. But I saw this thing on Instagram where I don't know if he worked for the campaign or he's just like a influencer supporter or something. It was like had all of these numbers with Trump leading in all of the swing states by a wide margin and had something on Twitter like, this is going to be a landslide. Like it's not close at all. Look at these numbers. The American people want this or something. And then he posted like the polling results from the pollster that he got them from, and it's an email from the pollster, but the email appears to be sent from his own account. He sent himself an email to himself saying, here are your polling results that I created, but I am you
Y'all
and I
got
made
to
this
be
up.
smarter. Y'all
So
got to
and
be
but
smarter.
he tried to white out the name of the person who sent it to him, but you can still see that it's his
It
name.
was him.
So
Be brighter, people.
that was interesting. So yeah, we won't know until much later tonight. Oh, but did you see that Elon Musk is going to shut down Twitter if Kamala wins? I'm like,
Oh, please shut it
promise?
down
Like,
already.
Please,
I mean, the
please,
thing,
please
like,
do that.
first of all, you've
Why
already
wait
lost billions
again?
of dollars and run your own business into the ground, but like to say that you're going to shut down your own operation because
It's so laughable.
someone like that is
It's
just
laughable. He's
that's
telling y'all that he's
hilarious.
already
Like,
about to go out of business.
I wish his ass would just go back to Africa.
I'm telling
Like,
you.
Actually, I
literally.
don't, because I don't wish that on the South African nation. He needs
I
to go
know.
back to
But I
whatever
mean,
European
honestly, I
nation he
feel like
originally
he would
came
just
from.
isolate and not, I don't know. He might bother people.
He needs to
Ma'am, he's
do
trying to conserve.
21andMe and find whatever European country his
It's
people came
23 and me.
from.
I know
It's
what you meant.
23.
Or 23andMe,
You
whatever.
know what though? But if he
He
might
needs
have
to do one of
21, and
them
that might
genetic
be.
tests, and whatever country his people are from, he can go there. That would be nice.
Why
Or
don't he
he can
just
go
hop
to
on one of
hell.
those spaceships and fly?
Right. Exactly. You want to go to space so bad. Bye.
Right.
Try out Mars first for us and tell us how it is.
Okay, then. I think that covers it.
All right.
See you guys today at our watch party. Make sure that you join us for the live. We will be going live during our watch party. And we hope
Yeah.
that you are having your own watch parties with the people that you love after you go to the polls with them. Okay?
And y'all feel free to pour up
We're going to
with
need a drink
us.
for these results.
We gonna definitely need a lot of drinks this week for this.
I'm gonna need, yeah.
I'm going to need a
Ugh.
detox next week after this week. Lord
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah.
It's like whether it's a celebration or a more somber event.
It's going to be a
Definitely gonna
celebration.
need a drink for
It's
this.
gonna be a celebration. I'm clean
feeling
with it.
hopeful. I'm feeling hopeful, sis.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lady Gaga got me in the mood.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't hear her.
And
Thanks
all
a
the
lot.
women that are gonna sneak in that booth and make their husbands mad by voting for Kamala.
Well, because if your husband is mad about who you voting for,
Yeah,
you might need to examine
you
your
might need an
relationship.
exit plan, sis.
He might not have your best
interest at heart.
He might not.
Certainly not.
Yeah. Well,
In the words of Erica Mena.
Well, my mom
sometimes
said
you
she
can't
was like,
even
they've
trust
been
the
really
person that you
reporting.
sleep
Oh
with.
God.
Wait, what?
I said
That's
in
a
the
good old
words
Love and
of
Hip Hop New
Erica
York
Mena,
throwback.
sometimes you can't even trust the person that you sleep
You
with.
can't even trust the one you sleep with.
If they acting like that about your vote, they don't have your best interest at heart. Anybody who loves you doesn't want to control you.
Well, then you saw that 80-year-old lady that voted early. I think she voted early in some state, and she was like, "Yeah, I cast my vote for the first time in my life after my husband died because he wouldn't let me vote." Y'all didn't see that?
What?
No,
No.
but you know what? I'm sorry sis had to wait that long
I
because
know.
it sounds like she was in a very controlling situation.
Oh my
If he don't want
gosh.
you to vote, he don't want you to have no
Well, did she vote
voice.
for Kamala?
I am pretty sure she did.
He ain't wait all that time to go out
Yeah.
there and
To
vote
vote
for
for
some
a
man that
man.
don't want you to have
Yeah.
no vote no
Please.
more.
It
She
was
said, I
on
know
it
where.
was on my algorithm, so I'm assuming that that was the case.
She said,
And
I
I
didn't
took
come
that
this
to
far to
mean.
get this far.
She,
Okay? That's what sis
Exactly.
said.
I feel
Exactly.
bad
So,
for her. I really feel bad for her. That's terrible.
well, don't now because she might have just elected the first woman president with her first vote. So,
Right.
That's right. Imagine what she could have been doing for us. Her and people like her could have been doing for us had they not had people trying to control and block them.
That's a damn shame.
I know. Mm-mm-mm.
Your husband got to die for you to be liberated. Good Lord.
That's so
well,
sad because then it just makes you think, what else he don't let you do?
that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, the
Right.
voting's
Have you been
probably
locked in a
the
basement
last
this
thing
whole
on her
time?
list in terms of
Like, is you okay?
things I would like to do. Can she drive? Did she probably couldn't?
If he didn't want you to vote, I'm sure you couldn't take yourself nowhere.
Right, not by
You
yourself.
only get to vote like once every few years. It's not like you get to vote every day. You think you just gonna get up and drive away one day? No. I'll tell you what,
That
my grandmother was born in 1920, and I'm thankful that her and my grandfather would go together and always practice their civic duties.
isn't
And
that
they were about, she also worked, they were also about that equality of life, but very much so. She was of the generation, I work, he worked, I got a bank account, he got a bank account, we got a bank account. His money's ours, my money's kind of mine.
yes. We'll see you on the other side.
Democracy prevails
That's
today,
right.
later today.